First of all, thank you very much for joining our session today. And we're going to be showing you a run through of our new AI tool for special educational needs and disabilities. Introducing myself, so my name is Lewis Gould. I'm the Director of Panoramic Associates, and I'm responsible for our public sector teams. And we support councils largely with interim and permanent placements. I think there's a couple of familiar faces on here too, so great to see you both. Good to see you all. So we've got a brief agenda today to show exactly what we're expecting to run through with you. And so once we pass the introduction, I'm going to hand you over to Andrew Bird and Ben Powell, who I will introduce you to in a moment. And they'll give you a bit of an overview of our Send AI tool and a bit of a story behind that. Then Andrew is going to take you through a demo of the tool and show you exactly what that can do. And then finally, we'll have a Q&A session and we can look at any feedback and next steps. And then so on to our intros then. So on the call today, we have two fantastic people who are going to be running through this presentation with you. First of all, we have a gentleman called Ben Powell. Ben is our Director of Send Services, and he is a highly experienced educational and child psychologist who has been practicing for 16 years. Ben joined us at the beginning of last year with a vision to develop a permanent educational psychology service for Panoramic Associates, which he's actually done brilliantly. And now we're up to 10 permanently employed heads. And we're currently providing educational psychology services to our clients. Many have reported that they really enjoy working with this model as an alternative to hiring agency locums. So we're glad to see that's already a huge success. And then secondly, we have Andrew Bird. So Andrew is the CEO of a company named WA Chump Sons, and they are the technical expertise behind our tool. So prior to WA Chump Sons, Andrew holds a strong career history in the consulting industry and other executive appointments, including CEO of a primary care network in the NHS. WA Chump are working in partnership with our business to provide innovative solutions to real problems that our clients are facing. And then between Ben and Andrew, they have developed our Send AI tool, which you'll be hearing about shortly. So I will now pass you over to Andrew and Ben to provide you the overview.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Pleasure to meet you all. So I think the best thing I wanted to do was probably just give a bit of a story and a backdrop, if you like, as to kind of how Andrew and I arrived at this model, this tool, and Andrew will come in and chip in at any point as well as he sees fit. But just to give you that overview, if I may, I guess what was initially driving this idea or mode of thought, the kind of four key drivers really, and as you will all know, the current national, local Send landscape has, in all honesty, experienced quite a few number of years of challenges and difficulties. Of course, there's fantastic and amazing practice up and down the country, but collectively, I think we all appreciate and acknowledge that there are substantial challenges in relation to poor Send outcomes regarding children, young people, huge challenges around high needs block deficits, and arguably a very saturated EHCP system, which is drawing an awful lot of operational and financial and practitioner resource, really. So kind of that was kind of one area, and then obviously alongside that, we know there's been a huge proliferation of advancement in AI, software and technology over the past 3 years. And Andrew and I were thinking about how can we think about improving and supporting local communities, addressing some of the significant practice, operational, financial challenges that local areas are experiencing through the development of AI software, and kind of linking in with that. Of course, another key driver is, in relation, I guess, to the first point, is that we're really wanting to think about how we can use AI to enhance and develop more effective and preventative solutions for local areas, and therefore supporting and addressing some of those challenges around SEND outcomes and high needs block funding challenges, etc., etc. And I suppose the fourth component, which was driving a lot of our thinking, was also the kind of anticipated government's white paper around SEND in the autumn term. And whilst only a very select few people, I imagine, will be absolutely aware of what that's going to look like, the vast majority of us don't at the moment, but we can glean and perhaps yield some thoughts and ideas around that, particularly around re-establishing inclusion, thinking about redistribution of funding and funding models, arguably different types of expectations or different types of ways of working with the mainstream education sector in terms of supporting children with special educational needs. So kind of thinking about those four key areas, I guess, was the fundamental backdrop around wanting to try and build a tool that can, effectively help and support local authorities in terms of analysing data and helping them predict and provide strategic solutions. And before we move on to the next slide, I'm quite keen to bring in Andrew briefly, if I may, because in addition to these four key drivers, Andrew has been working with Panoramic Associates, or PRG, our wider company, around kind of housing, and that kind of almost led us into this area as well. I just wondered, Andrew, it might be helpful just to give a very brief overview of that before we move on to the next slide.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Ben, and hi everybody. This project was very much born out of a program we were involved in for quite a while, actually, which is to do with social housing. So we have been, and we still continue to work with both housing associations and local councils. And it was particularly around the inbound AWAB's law coming in October this year that a lot of housing providers were looking at how do you effectively measure damp and mold in your housing stock without having to spend a ton of money fitting sensors. And from our perspective, this was just about data management, that you could use existing data that is existing within the housing association or more broadly within government coffers, so to speak, and come up with a more predictive way and therefore early interventions into that housing. And I'll show you, perhaps when I go on to my bit, Ben, some of the underlying data that then particularly led us down this route. But we've certainly found that the modelling that we're using in social housing is working very effectively in reducing the prevalence of damp and mould in this particular case. And the early indicators are that by using this predictive AI model, that we're reducing the reactive maintenance costs by between 30 and 40% in those housing associations and local authorities that are using it. So I know there's a lot of fear and mistrust, correctly, around AI, but my view, and I think the evidence of what we've done to date, and hopefully this will continue in this arena as well, is that provided you have the human remaining in the loop, so I see AI as being an enabler rather than a replacement for the AI in the loop. You have to have the human in the loop. But if you do that, then the power of AI in terms of processing vast amounts of data, and as I'm sure all of you on the call know, there are huge amounts of data that you can get your hands on from DFE, DWP, etc. And decision making and reducing administrative burden is really quite profound. And I think that's where we're seeing this coming together of AI and human expertise as adding genuine value at local society level. That's our intent. So hopefully that's covered it for you, Ben.
It's brilliant. That's fantastic. Thank you, Andrew. If we can just go to the next slide, please. Obviously we want to get to the demo as soon as possible. But just before we do, just wanted to outline really a little bit about the vision, if you like, of the product that's in development, and just a couple of slides on that really. So, ultimately, when we've been collaborating, we've wanted to develop an AI software product that can, essentially assess and synthesize a range of local, regional, and national data that can make sort of sophisticated predictions or assertions with regard to the types of send need that various cohorts or pupils will experience in local areas. So looking at a lot of data trends and so forth, can that help predict what potential emerging need might be, or what the pressing priorities are in a local area, and with that data, produce a range of evidence-based or best fit preventative strategies, approaches, or interventions that will best meet those needs or those priorities that have been identified. And just a brief add-on to that, if I may, colleagues, is that the vision also is if you carry out that assessment, if you like, using this tool, and you see that there may be gaps in either provision or service or interventions, then as an organisation, we have employed services, as Lewis kindly outlined at the beginning, that can support with that delivery or implementation. So that's like the vision of the product. And just before we move on, if you can just move to the next slide, I just wanted to highlight a couple of other points. And then Andrew, please comment if there's anything else you felt you wanted to add. But I do want to stress, I guess, at this juncture, that this is it's an initial development phase, and we've been doing a lot of work in the background, Andrew in particular, in pulling a range of data sets together. But we do have significant ideas around how we want to develop it, and in terms of giving it capacity for you as local authorities or local areas to provide and give your own data sets that you may have. You may have survey responses from schools, parents, parent carer forum, for example, that you can potentially incorporate into this system, which will then further personalize the reporting. And at the moment, it does produce a report in terms of interventions and solutions, but also thinking about other types of reports that you may need to do. I know a number of you may either chair or be part of SEND strategic boards at local authorities, for example, and you need to do a lot of reports for that, or in preparation for area SEND inspections, for example. So there are other ways in which potentially this can produce reports to make your line of work, those areas, less onerous. So it was that's just some points I wanted to make, and just very finally, once Andrew might want to add a few other points there as well, and before he does his demo. But as Andrew does do his demo, it'd be really helpful for you to have a think and reflect on any strengths and opportunities you feel this product has, or any other types of data that you think should be added or could be added that would be of use to you. And in addition to that, any other forms of final reporting or solution suggestions that you feel would be useful to you. We're very keen to consult with the sector to understand your needs further, which will enable us to further tailor this product. So Andrew, I've talked enough there, I reckon. So over to you, sir. And if there's anything else you want to add, please do, and take us through the demo.
You always do it so expertly, Ben. So just before I get the next screen up, just a very quick one, which may surprise a few of you. So we're not a software house, just to make that clear. So certainly my intent through this call is not to offer you a software product. what we are is a solutions company. So I'm hoping what we're going to show you is a means of addressing the very pertinent problems that you have. That can include the software, but it gives us the benefit that we can be responsive to your actual needs. I know one of one software house that's very active in this market, for example, is Liquid Logic, which is very, very good. We're not a Liquid Logic. We will give you, if you wanted the software, something which is exactly tailored to your needs rather than a one size fits all. But let me just share a screen if I can. So can you see that? So and this goes back to what I said earlier. This was really the start point, the genesis for this conversation that Ben and I and Lewis and Bianca and co started. This was the part of the development of the social housing tool where we were ingesting a load of data from Public Health England, DWP, IMD deprivation index and what have you. And there's one particular statistic that stood out for me. And you can see it on the screen here. So this, ignore the respiratory health implications because they're very pertinent to a WAB's law and social housing. It was these figures here relating to sleep deprivation, and particularly this one for child health conditions. And look at the difference between what's called decent housing, according to government standard, which is the blue bar here, and the pink bar for poor housing. So the difference for sleep disturbance, sleep deprivation in children living in poor houses is over 3 times the prevalence that it is in decent standard housing. And that started a conversation where, in my view, I started to question, well, is there a correlation between disturbed sleep and SEND in any potential way? And that started the conversation that really brought us to where we are today. So let me now skip over to, this is the dashboard. And I'll give you a very quick run through, but Ben will chip in as the subject matter expert on various areas. So this is based on actual data. And I know at a local authority level, you'll have more accurate data because it's based on a number of different sources, but this is coming directly from DFE and some data from DWP as well. And the first thing to say about the data is it astounded me how much data there is available. So heaven knows how you are expected to process this at local authority level. It really is quite astonishing. I think we looked at downloading the complete data set from DFE, for example, as through one API, and there's over 5.7 million rows of data. Now, I'm actually not a techie, so that makes me wonder how a local authority is expected to download, ingest, and process that amount of data. It really is quite staggering. But if you look at what have we got, so up here we've got like an overview of the dashboard. So total pupils with SEND. Here's the total with EHC plan, and it shows the year-on-year increase or decrease. And as I think everybody knows, the percentages are increasing. SEN support for the year and a percentage of all pupils. The data set that's available from central government goes back, I think it's to 2015. So you can see the charts here, and no one, I guess, is surprised by the direction of travel. All are increasing. We've got some data here on primary needs distribution. That pie chart is probably a little bit small, but it was trying to cope with I think the data labels. And then we've got some breakdowns by region and by school phase. So was there anything particular I'm missing on that, Ben, from your perspective? So diving then into primary needs, you can break the data down by the primary needs distribution in this case. There are a number of drop-down menus. You want to look at all SEND, EHC plan, SEN support, etc., etc. Regional analysis. There is actually a kind of a traffic light coloration behind this, but unsurprisingly, all of them are in the amber and red, which I think is perhaps indicative of the scale of the issue. And again, going into school phases, and again, feel free to chip in if I'm missing any of the key factors here. but we're breaking this down by school phase, so state-funded special school, and so on. And you can see how the distribution changes. Trends we mentioned briefly earlier. And I'll just skip on, actually. There's a few extra bits here that I wanted to show you. And although there's no data in them, but it shows how configurable the system can be. So demographics, there's one particular council who want to understand the difference in distribution across ethnicity and demographic data within their borough, within their wards. So we've built in that capability. Another one, as part of their strategic plan, want to understand the distribution by age groups and particularly look at insights around early identification and transition planning. I've stripped the data out of this for obvious privacy reasons, but it gives you an idea of the type of configuration that can go on here. Another view, again, the data has been stripped out for reasons of protection, but this looks at educational settings analysis. And another one here where we're looking at a dashboard related to, again, this particular council's strategic priorities. So aligned to their, I think, their 5-year strategic plan. So it gives them a level of insight backed up by actual data that allows them to plan with confidence based on trends, evidence, and correlating data that sits behind it. We mentioned earlier that you can run reports. I just want to get one of those onto the screen. So this one's been pre-run just for the purpose of expediency. The reports run in real time. Generation takes 25 to 30 seconds. So if you are your particular borough or by ward, if you wanted to go down to that level, you can run a report and the AI is giving you a number of key pointers. So one, identified risks based on the actual data for your area, key issues, and then some recommendations based on our proprietary AI engine. And again, I want to touch on AI is perceived as being risky. Or I had a conversation with a gentleman over lunch on Friday in London who was convinced that AI is going to kill us all off. I'm not quite there yet. I think AI hopefully has got quite a bit of value to add. And I think this is one of them. These reports were run literally, like I say, in about 25 to 30 seconds. And this is still in very early development. But I can imagine a lot of councils with the resource constraints that you have are probably having to pay people 350, 450, 500 pounds a day to generate 2 or 3 or 4 of these reports. This engine could pump out probably 1,000 reports a day, and the cost of doing so is pennies by comparison. So I think on the more straightforward cases, the ability to generate either a strategic, operational, or tactical plan at authority level is very present and in real time. But also probably for some of the more straightforward individual cases, you can also automate a lot of the report generation. And when it comes to the individual report generation, we've already got things like DTAC and the other ISO accreditation and cybersecurity standards that you would want to have for that report generation. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is it. It is as simple and as complicated as 5.7 million rows of data.